My family laughed when I said I was bringing a +1 to the 4th of July cookout, and my Aunt Diane said imaginary boyfriends don't count, Josie. Then a black SUV rolled up the gravel driveway. I held my smile. I held my store-bought potato salad in its plastic tub because I'd been too anxious to cook anything that morning. My face was on fire. My cousin Tyler raised his beer like a trophy. Josie brought a +1 again. What is it this year? An emotional support goldfish. More laughing. Loud, mean, the kind that follows you home and sits on your chest at 2 in the morning. I'm 32. I teach 10th grade biology at a public high school outside Cedar Falls, Ohio. To my family, that makes me a punchline. The leftover daughter. The one nobody picked. My sister Paige is a corporate litigator. She married an orthopedic surgeon named Mark. Their daughter Everly has reportedly never had a single tantrum in public. My mother repeats this fact at every gathering like it's a certified medical miracle. My family worships Paige the way some families worship saints with candles they don't even realize they're lighting. Me, they mock. Every cookout, every holiday, every single year like clockwork. Like a tradition nobody voted for, but everybody shows up to anyway. So where is he? Josie Tyler said, grinning at his girlfriend Kaylee, like he needed an audience to land it. This secret boyfriend of yours. He's on his way, I said. Sure he is, Tyler winked. What's his name, Casper? I checked my phone. 4:47 p.m. No new text since the one at noon that just said time's running behind, don't panic. My stomach turned to ice. What if he really didn't come? What if I actually was the joke they'd decided I was 12 years running? His name is Caleb, I said quietly. Ooh, Caleb. Tyler made a face like he'd bitten a lemon. What's he do? Sell used cars? My eyes burned. I hated myself for it, but I said the one true thing I had left. The thing I'd promised 3 different people in expensive suits I would never say at a family cookout. He's running for governor. The backyard went dead silent. One perfect, awful beat. A lawnmower 2 yards over a dog barking somewhere, nothing else. Then Tyler howled. He laughed so hard he choked on his beer foam coming out his nose. A governor, he shouted loud enough for the whole party to hear, loud enough for Mrs. Callahan 3 houses down to hear. She finally outdid herself. My Aunt Diane pressed a hand to her chest, eyes full of fake pity, the kind she'd perfected at my grandfather's funeral, where she cried louder than anyone who'd actually liked the man. Oh, sweetie, you don't have to make things up. I'm not making it up, I said. My voice cracked right down the middle, and I felt it crack the way you feel a hairline fracture before you ever see the X-ray. Sure, hun. Tyler wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. Governor of where exactly? Narnia. I stood up. My folding chair scraped against the patio stone, a sound like something tearing. I was done. I was leaving and never coming back. And this time I meant it the way you mean it when you've meant it 11 times before, and finally believe yourself. Then I heard it. Tires on gravel, slow, heavy, not a minivan. Not Uncle Roy's truck coming back with more ice. The side gate swung open. A man in a dark suit stepped through first. Sunglasses, even though the sun was already low and orange. A coiled wire behind his ear. He scanned the yard the way you'd scan a parking lot if you thought someone might be in it who shouldn't be. Who the hell is that, Uncle Roy? Barked Spatula, frozen over the grill. The man's eyes found me. Miss Whitfield. My whole family turned and stared at me like I'd grown a second head. A second agent followed him in. A third moved along the fence line, slow and unhurried. Then Caleb walked through the gate. I'm going to stop the scene right there because I think you need the 16 months before that moment to understand why my hands were shaking so hard. I dropped my phone in the grass. I'd been teaching for 8 years when I met him. A gray Tuesday afternoon in October, the kind where the heating in my classroom either doesn't work or works too hard, never anything in between. He came to Cedar Falls High as part of a listening tour on public school funding. He was a state senator then, not a candidate for governor yet, and his team had picked 3 classrooms across the district completely at random. Mine happened to be one of them. He sat in the back of my 3rd period class for 48 minutes and didn't say a word until the bell rang. Then he stayed another 20 asking me real questions, not photo op questions. About lab equipment budgets. About the 9 kids in that class who shared textbooks because there weren't enough to go around. About why I'd spent $380 of my own paycheck on microscope slides that September. I didn't think anything of it. Politicians visit schools. Politicians leave. He came back in January alone, no staff, no press. Said he'd been thinking about something I'd said about kids and dignity. We got coffee at a place 2 blocks from school called The Daily Grind, and I remember exactly what I ordered, a medium drip black because I was too nervous to explain anything more complicated. We talked for almost 2 hours. I had lab reports to grade that night, and didn't grade a single one. By May, we were quietly, carefully, seriously together. And by quietly, I mean it the way you mean a secret you're keeping for someone else's sake, not your own. Caleb was already being floated for governor. His chief of staff, a sharp-tired man named Owen Marsh, 16 years in state politics, sat us both down that spring with a legal pad and a face like a funeral director. "I'm not telling you to hide her," he said to Caleb, not unkindly. "I'm telling you that the second this becomes public, it stops being about her. It becomes a storyline. Opposition research will go through her divorce filings. She doesn't have any good. Her student loans, her parking tickets, her Facebook from 2013. They will find something. They always find something. I just want you both walking in with your eyes open." I asked him what he thought I should do. "Decide if you can survive being a headline," Owen said. "Most people can't. There's no shame in that." I thought I could. I didn't know yet what it would cost me at my own family's picnic table. The first time I almost told them was Thanksgiving 14 months ago. Caleb and I had been together 6 months by then. I sat at my mother's table while Paige's husband Mark explained unprompted the 7 stages of a total knee replacement to a table of people who had asked him exactly 0 questions about it, and I thought times I could end this. Right now, I could say his name and watch every fork stop moving. I told myself it wasn't the right moment. There's never a right moment to detonate something. I called it patience. Really, it was fear wearing a nicer coat. Christmas 12 months ago, I noticed the next sign. My mother had started referring to my situation to other relatives in a hushed voice, like being single was a diagnosis. Aunt Diane asked if I'd considered lowering my standards a little just for practice. I told myself it was just Diane being Diane. The evidence said otherwise. My mother had built me a dating profile on an app called Sweetwater Match without asking, and showed it to me with genuine pride like a gift. My hands went cold reading the bio she'd written for me times. Sweet school teacher, a little awkward, easy to please. New Year's 11 months ago, Tyler brought a date to family game night and introduced her to everyone by her full name and job title. "This is Kaylee. She's a dental hygienist." Then he turned to me in front of 9 people and said Josie doesn't bring dates because there's nothing to bring. I laughed along. I always laughed along. It was the only currency I had left at that table. Each time I told Caleb a piece of it, and each time he got quieter and angrier in a way he tried to hide from me, which somehow made it worse. "Let me come," he said more than once. "Let me just come and meet them." And every time Owen would gently professionally kill it. Polling was tight. A primary challenger was circling. A reveal had to be controlled, timed, layered, not lobbed into a backyard full of people who frankly none of his team trusted to keep quiet for 48 hours, let alone forever. There was one gathering in April. I almost didn't survive emotionally. Paige's baby shower for Everly thrown 7 months before her due date because my mother insisted on doing it properly. 28 women crowded into my mother's living room. A banner that said, "Welcome little Everly" in gold cursive. A game where everyone wrote predictions for the baby on index cards. Mine said in my own handwriting, "She'll grow up surrounded by people who love her loudly." Aunt Diane read it aloud to the room, then added unprompted, "Must be nice. Some of us are still waiting on our turn, right, Josie?" 27 women turned to look at me holding a tiny gift bag with a single onesie inside, and I smiled. The smile I'd practiced since I was 19, the one that doesn't reach anywhere near my eyes. I called Caleb from my car in my mother's driveway afterward, and cried for the first time in front of him about any of it. He didn't say much. He just stayed on the phone while I drove home. 48 minutes of mostly silence, the same 48 minutes he'd once sat in the back of my classroom saying nothing at all. I told myself that meant something. It did. I started seeing a therapist that spring, Dr. Renee Ashford, a licensed counselor with an office above a dry cleaner and a white noise machine that never quite drowned out the dryers. I went in saying I needed help managing family stress. 5 sessions in, she said something that has stuck with me ever since. "You're not failing to set boundaries, Josie. You're succeeding at protecting a man's career at the direct cost of your own dignity. I want you to notice that trade every single time you make it." I didn't like hearing it. I didn't stop making the trade. Not yet. By early spring of this year, things had changed in ways my family didn't know about. Caleb had announced his run for governor in February. Polling had him up 9 points by April. And somewhere in there, April 3rd, a Wednesday, both of us still in work clothes in his kitchen. He told me he was done being careful. "I'm not losing you to a campaign schedule," he said. "I'd rather lose the race." Owen didn't love it, but Owen had also started to like me in his clipped, suspicious way, and he came around to a plan. We'd go public on our own terms, our own timeline, with a single, coordinated announcement. A short statement, one approved photo, no feeding frenzy. Quiet, controlled, dignified. The opposite of what eventually happened in my aunt's backyard. That meant a few more months of total radio silence. No public photos, no tagged locations, a non-disclosure agreement. I signed myself voluntarily because I understood the stakes better than anyone gave me credit for. 11 pages drafted by outside counsel with one clause I could recite from memory times. Disclosure of the relationship prior to the agreed announcement date may result in immediate and significant harm to ongoing campaign operations. I was the only person on Earth outside Caleb's tightest circle who knew the date they'd picked, which is what made what happened next so frightening. His protective detail had been assigned in May once the polling made him a real frontrunner. Not the Secret Service that's federal reserved for a short list of people, but the state's executive protective unit, the team that shadows governors and serious candidates for the office. The agent running close protection was Renata Cruz, 14 years with the unit. She called me directly for the first time in early June. "Miss Whitfield, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest," she said. "Has anyone in your family approached you about money in exchange for information about your relationship?" My stomach dropped through the floor. "No." "Why?" "We picked up some chatter," she said. "I can't get more specific right now. I just need you to tell me immediately if anyone does." I hung up and sat on my kitchen floor for 10 minutes. 2 days later, Owen called. His voice was different than I'd heard it before. "Careful the way you talk to someone right before you tell them something is broken." "There's a reporter," he said. "Dana Whitfield, no relation, small world, covers the State House for the Ohio Ledger. 5 years on the beat, plays it straight most of the time. She reached out to our press office this morning asking, and I'm quoting her email, whether the campaign can confirm or deny that Senator Sullivan has been in a long-term relationship with a Cedar Falls high school teacher named Josie Whitfield." How I said, and I genuinely could not finish the sentence. "We don't know yet," Owen said, "but somebody talked." It took Renata's team 3 days to figure out who. I wish I could tell you I was shocked. It was Tyler. Not maliciously exactly, or fine maliciously, but not the way you'd expect from a movie villain. Tyler had been laid off from his sales job in March. He'd run up almost $4,000 on a credit card he couldn't pay down. In late May, scrolling a tip page for a gossip aggregator called Buzz Corner, not the Ledger, a smaller, sleazier outlet that pays cash for tips, he'd seen a post offering $3,000 for verified, exclusive political relationship scoops. Renata's team got a screenshot through channels I still don't fully understand and didn't ask too many questions about of a message thread between Tyler and a stringer who worked freelance for both Buzz Corner and occasionally fed scraps to legitimate reporters to build relationships. The message dated May 30th, 1152. Red Times. "My cousin's been secretly dating the Gov candidate for over a year. Family doesn't even know. I can get you photos from her phone if the price is right. Need at least $3,000. He never got the photos. I'd changed my passcode that winter after Caleb half-jokingly suggested I should. But Tyler had clearly been digging a half-overheard phone call here, a glimpse of a contact saved as just "see there." Maybe my unusually evasive answers every time anyone asked who I was seeing. He'd pieced together enough to be dangerous, and he'd tried to sell it. I found out on a Thursday night, June 12th, sitting at my kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had gone cold an hour earlier, while Owen walked me through it on speakerphone in that same careful voice. "We have it contained for now," he said. "Dana hasn't run anything. She's a real journalist. She wants confirmation, not a leaked screenshot from a stringer with an axe to grind. But Josie, I have to be straight with you. If this breaks before we're ready, before there's a real statement, it breaks as a scandal. Secret relationship family didn't know candidate hid girlfriend from public. It writes itself, and none of those headlines are true. But true stops mattering once it's a headline." "What do we do?" I said. My hands had started shaking. I remember staring at them like they belonged to someone else. "You have a choice to make," Owen said, "and it has to be tonight, because Dana's editor wants an answer by tomorrow on whether to run with what they've got sourced or not. Option 1. We get ahead of it, A real statement. Our terms tomorrow morning before anyone else controls the story. Option 2. We ask for more time. Try to hold it. Hope it doesn't break before the family reunion you mentioned. When is that Sunday? Sunday, I said. 2 days away. If we ask for more time, and it leaks anyway, Owen said, it leaks ugly, and it leaks while you're standing in a backyard full of people who already think you're a liar. I won't sugarcoat that for you. I thought about Dr. Ashford, about the trade she'd named months earlier, protecting his career at the cost of my own dignity every single time. I thought about Tyler's text. I can get you photos. Need at least $3,000. My own cousin had priced me at $3,000. I'm done hiding, I said, and I heard my voice steady out as I said it, the crack from a year of reunions, finally closing instead of widening. Whatever happens Sunday happens. But I'm not doing one more year of this. Caleb didn't sleep that night either, he told me later. He spent it on the phone with Owen and the campaign's communications team redrafting a statement 4 different ways. Around 1 a.m, he called me, and I could hear how tired he was, and underneath the tired, how angry. Not at me, never at me, but at every year of every reunion he hadn't been allowed to walk into. I want to do this my way, he said. Not a press release at 6 a.m, while you're standing alone in your kitchen reading it off your phone like everyone else. I want to walk into that backyard and meet your family myself. Today if it has to leak today. Sunday if we get that long. Your numbers, I started. Are mine to risk, he said. Josie, I have spent 16 months asking my own girlfriend to apologize for me with her silence. I'm not doing it anymore. Dana Whitfield's editor, as it turned out, gave them until Monday a single extra day, the kind of professional courtesy a real journalist extends when a campaign asks for time to confirm details responsibly instead of stonewalling. It wasn't generosity. It was Dana protecting her own story from getting scooped by a screenshot-based hit piece with no named sources. But it bought us Sunday. Renata Cruz ran the security plan herself. If we're doing this in an open backyard with 30 people and 0 advance notice, she told Caleb flatly on a call I was on, I need full control of the perimeter. I need eyes on the gate and I need you to let my team go in first. Non-negotiable. Understood, Caleb said. And sir, she added, for what it's worth, I looked at the family's social media. Your girlfriend's about to walk into some kind of roast. I just want you to know, I get why you want to do it this way. So that's where we were that Sunday at 4:47 p.m., when I checked my phone for a text that hadn't come, when my aunt told the whole backyard that imaginary boyfriends don't count, when I stood up to leave for the last time and heard tires on gravel instead. The man in sunglasses said my name. My family stared at me like I'd grown a second head. A second agent came through the gate. A third moved the fence line. Then Caleb walked through. No suit. Jeans, a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to the forearm. The same calm, steady face I'd watched on the local news 100 times and touched in person 1,000 more. The backyard didn't just get quiet. It went into a vacuum. Even the dog 2 yards over stopped barking like it had read the room. Sorry I'm late, he said easily, like this was any Tuesday. Traffic and my security insisted on sweeping the yard first. He walked straight past Tyler like he wasn't there at all. He took my hand. He leaned in and kissed my cheek slow and soft like he'd done it 1,000 times before, even though technically in public, in front of other people, he never had. Hi, sweetheart, he said quietly. You look beautiful. Glass shattered behind me. My mother had dropped the pitcher of sweet tea. A clank, then a hiss. Tyler's beer hit the grass and died at his feet, foam crawling toward his sneakers. Aunt Diane's wine sloshed down the front of her blouse. She didn't even notice. Caleb laced his fingers through mine and turned to face 30 frozen relatives. Thank you for having me, he said. Josie's told me so much about all of you. Nobody said a word. Somewhere behind me I heard Paige whisper, oh my God, to Mark, who didn't answer. Because for the first time in 12 years of family gatherings, Mark didn't have an explanation ready. Uncle Roy finally found his voice. He wiped his greasy hands on his apron, squinting like he could squint the SUVs out of existence. No offense, he said, but what's a governor doing with our Josie? She teaches high school biology. He said it like an accusation. Like it was supposed to shrink me one last time the way it always had. Caleb didn't blink. Senator, technically until November, he said. But to answer your question, she's the most important person in this yard. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She teaches kids to think like scientists in a world that just wants them to scroll. Last year, she spent almost $400 of her own paycheck on lab supplies for students whose families couldn't afford them. You measure people by job titles and mortgage payments. I measure them by what they build that outlasts them. She's out there actually doing it. Nobody breathed. My aunt's mouth hung open. Tyler stared at the grass like it owed him an apology, which, as it turned out, it kind of did. Caleb turned back to me, and something in his eyes shifted the calm public face cracking into the one I only ever saw in his kitchen at midnight. "Josie," he said. He reached into his jeans pocket. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought everyone could see it through my shirt. "I wasn't going to do this here," he said, lowering himself onto one knee in the wet grass, soaking the denim instantly. "But since everyone's already watching, and since I've spent 16 months being told to wait for a better moment, I don't think there's such a thing as a better moment. There's just the next one you decide to take." "Caleb." I grabbed his arm. "Not here. Not like this." He just smiled and closed his hand around something small. "Too late, sweetheart," he said. "I already cleared my whole life for you." He opened his hand. A ring, simple, not flashy, the kind a person picks when they've actually paid attention to what someone likes instead of what photographs well caught the last of the evening light. "I'm not asking you to marry a governor," he said. "I'm asking you to marry a guy who got a little obsessed with a biology teacher who scolded him for touching the classroom microscopes the second time he visited uninvited. Everything else is just noise." I was crying before I could decide whether I wanted to. "Yes," I said. And then, because apparently once wasn't enough, after 16 months of silence, yes. The backyard erupted, not the mean laughter from 20 minutes earlier, but something that sounded almost like the same thing and was underneath its complete opposite. My mother was sobbing into a dish towel. Everly, the baby, who apparently never cried, started wailing right on cue, which seemed to break some kind of spell over the whole party because everyone laughed at that, the good kind of laugh, the kind that's actually about joy. Aunt Diane made her way toward me, wine-stained and wide-eyed. "Josie, I had no idea. I would never have." "You would have," I said, not unkindly, but not softly either. "You did for 12 years. I just couldn't make you believe me until somebody else made you." She didn't have an answer for that for once. The Tyler part of the story didn't come out that day. It came out 4 days later, on a Thursday, when Renata Cruz, who it turns out takes leak investigations as personally as she takes physical security, finished tracing the message thread, conclusively enough to brief Owen, who briefed Caleb, who told me over dinner with a look on his face like he genuinely didn't know how I'd take it. I'd already half suspected. The timing was too clean. Tyler had been the loudest mocker for 12 years and the one who, the moment the SUVs rolled up, looked less shocked than guilty. I didn't call him screaming. I drove to my mother's house instead and showed her the screenshot Owen's team had cleared me to share. "I can get you photos from her phone if the price is right. Need at least $3,000. I watched my mother's face do something I'd genuinely never seen it do before, go pale, then red, then very, very still. She called a family meeting. Not a reunion, an actual sit-down. 6 people at our kitchen table, the kind of room where Tyler couldn't perform for an audience the way he always had at the bigger gatherings. "You tried to sell your cousin's privacy," my mother said to a tabloid for money, while she was sitting at our table getting laughed at for the relationship you were trying to profit off of. Tyler didn't have a joke ready. For the first time in my memory, Tyler didn't have anything ready at all. He lost the equipment sales job lead Kaylee's father had been about to set up for him. Kaylee's father, a man who reads the ledger religiously, heard the full story secondhand within a week and decided he didn't especially want his name attached to Tyler's professionally or otherwise. Kaylee left him 2 months later for reasons she told my mother had honestly been building for a while, which I believe. And which I also believe Tyler's $3,000 Hail Mary did absolutely nothing to slow down. Dana Whitfield, for her part, ran the story exactly the way Owen had hoped. Accurate, sourced, dignified, the relationship confirmed on our terms 2 days after the engagement with one photo we'd chosen ourselves. Caleb and me, at the Daily Grind, the coffee shop where it started, not the backyard where it became public. She never used the tip from the stringer. "I don't run unverified tips that read like an extortion attempt," she told Owen when he thanked her for sitting on it. "That's not journalism. That's being someone's collection agency." It's been 8 months now. Caleb won in November, not because of the reunion video, though it did go viral within our extended family group chat, in a way that still makes me wince and laugh in equal measure, but because by his own admission, 16 months of being unable to talk about the person he loved made him campaign like a man with something to prove the second he didn't have to hide anymore. I still teach. I turned down 2 separate offers to consult on education policy from people who clearly wanted a photogenic teacher in the room more than they wanted my actual opinion on funding formulas. I'm still deciding what, if anything, I want to do with the platform I apparently have now. Dr. Ashford and I still meet every other week, mostly to talk about ordinary things now, whether I'm sleeping, whether I'm setting boundaries that have nothing to do with politics at all. She told me once that the wedding date matters a lot less than the fact that I finally stopped apologizing for taking up space at my own family's table. Aunt Diane sends me a card every year on my birthday now. I don't know if it's guilt or genuine, and at this point I've decided it doesn't actually matter which. I just answer it kindly and let it be what it is. Tyler and I talk sometimes, not often. He apologized once in person badly, the way people apologize when they're more sorry about getting caught than about what they did. I told him I appreciated it anyway because I'd rather take an imperfect apology than spend the rest of my life waiting for a perfect one that was never coming. Last week, a student in my third period class, the same class Caleb first visited 3 years and 1 classroom renovation ago, raised her hand during a unit on the scientific method and asked if it was true that the governor had proposed to me in front of my whole family. In front of my whole family, I corrected her. But yes. Was it true love, she asked, or was it like a publicity thing? I thought about it for a second. About Tyler's $3,000 text. About Owen's 11-page NDA. About Renata Cruz asking if anyone had approached me about money. About 16 months of being someone's well-kept secret, before I finally decided I was done being kept. It was because I stopped letting other people decide whether I counted, I told her. Everything else was just timing. She wrote that down. I don't know if it'll end up in her essay, but it's the truest thing I've said about any of it. And for once in my entire family's history of deciding what was real and what wasn't, nobody was around to laugh.